So today we're going to go into some deeper aspects of the Dhamma. The sutta I'm reading is Majjhima Nikaya 43, Mahavedala Sutta, the greater series of questions and answers. Thus have I heard, on one occasion the Blessed One was living at Savatthi in Jeta's Grove in Anathapindika's park. Then, when it was evening, the Venerable Mahakotthita rose from meditation, went to the Venerable Sariputta, and exchanged greetings with him. So Mahakotthita was another Arahat, and of course Sariputta was also an Arahat. So now this dialogue is between two fully awakened beings. And the question and answers, one question is asked by Mahakotthita, and then it's answered by Sariputta. But it's not like Mahakotthita needs to know these answers. He already knows the answers. This is like a modern day fireside chat, between two experts. So their students are listening to them have a chat. When this courteous and amiable talk was finished, he sat down at one side and said to the Venerable Sariputta, one who is unwise is said, friend. With reference to what is it said, one who is unwise? One does not wisely understand. One does not wisely understand. That is why it is said, one who is unwise. And what doesn't one wisely understand? One does not wisely understand, this is suffering. One does not wisely understand, this is the origin of suffering. One does not wisely understand, this is the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One does not wisely understand, friend. That is why it is said, one who is unwise. So one does not wisely understand the Four Noble Truths, meaning one does not have the awareness of the Four Noble Truths in every experience, being able to apply the Four Noble Truths the same way we were talking about when we were talking about applying the framework of the Four Noble Truths to the links of dependent origination, or to the hindrances, or to whatever it might be. One who is wise is friend. With reference to what is this said, one who is wise. One wisely understands, friend. That is why it is said, one who is wise. What does one wisely understand? One wisely understands, this is suffering. One wisely understands, this is the origin of suffering. One wisely understands, this is the cessation of suffering. One wisely understands, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. One wisely understands, friend. This is why it is said, one who is wise. So the application of the Four Noble Truths, the ability to recognize when the first Noble Truth arises, the ability to abandon the second Noble Truth, then the ability to experience the third Noble Truth, and then cultivate the fourth Noble Truth. This is facilitated through the process of right effort, through the 6 R's. The first Noble Truth of suffering and the different aspects of suffering are fully understood. The different causes and conditions for suffering are fully abandoned. And one fully realizes and experiences Nirodha, the third Noble Truth. And one does this through the cultivation of the Eightfold Path. which is facilitated through right effort. Consciousness is said, friend, with reference to what is consciousness said. It cognizes, friend. That is why consciousness is said. Cognizes, what does that mean? Cognize. To become aware of something, to understand something. What does it cognize? It cognizes this is pleasant. It cognizes this is painful. It cognizes this is neither painful nor pleasant. It cognizes, friend. That is why consciousness is said. That is the utility of awareness, to become aware of quality of experiences. Just being aware of the experience, that's it. When there is a superimposition of the self into the awareness, then the awareness is taken to be me. The awareness is taken to be I. The awareness is taken to be myself, mine. But awareness arises dependent upon its object. That awareness changes. Right now, you're looking at me. Let's say that cat was coming in. You'd see that cat. The awareness switched from the awareness of me to the awareness of the cat. But it was not the same awareness. There was the awareness of me, arising in dependence upon the experience of seeing me. Then when the attention moved, there's the awareness of the cat, arising in dependence upon seeing the cat. In the same way, when you're meditating, there is the awareness of loving kindness. There's the awareness of radiating compassion. There's the awareness of quiet mind. When the attention moves towards a hindrance, towards a distraction, the awareness of the object disappears, and what arises is the awareness of the distraction. Then recognizing this, recognizing this, perceiving there is a distraction, releasing the awareness from that, coming back to mind and body, relaxing, re-smiling, and then returning back to the object. Right effort. Then the awareness of that hindrance passes away, and there is the renewal of the awareness of the object of meditation, a new awareness of the object of meditation. Now, the feeling of the object of meditation, if we are to understand it based on what we were talking about yesterday, that feeling is made up of micro moments, many trillions of experiences. And tied to each of those many arising and passing away, there is a consciousness, an awareness of each of those. But because it's so fast, it feels like one fluid awareness. Wisdom and consciousness, friend, are these states conjoined or disjoined? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them? Wisdom, that is the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, and the awareness of that. Are they separate or together? And is it possible to discern between the awareness and the awareness of the Four Noble Truths? Wisdom and consciousness, friend, these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it is impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. For what one wisely understands, what one wisely comprehends, that one cognizes, understanding, being aware of, comprehending, consciousness, cognition. These are all synonymous with each other. And what one cognizes, that one wisely understands. Meaning the awareness is tied to the object of awareness. When you understand the Four Noble Truths, there is an awareness of them. How else would you understand the Four Noble Truths? There has to be a cognition for you to be able to understand. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoined, and it is impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. Now, Sariputta just said this. It is impossible to separate each of them. Now listen to the question of Mahakotita. What is the difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness, these states that are conjoined, not disjoined? The difference, friend, between wisdom and consciousness, these states that are conjoined, not disjoined, is this. Wisdom is to be fully developed. Consciousness is to be fully understood. These states are conjoined, wisdom and consciousness. But there is a difference. Wisdom is to be fully developed, meaning you have to fully understand the first noble truth, fully abandon the second noble truth, fully experience the third noble truth, fully cultivate the fourth noble truth. The awareness of cognizing the Four Noble Truths, that is to be fully understood. Fully understood in what way? Understanding it as an aggregate that is made up of composites, that is dependently arisen, therefore impermanent, therefore to be taken impersonally. This is how it is to be understood. Feeling, friend, feeling, with reference to what is feeling said. It feels, friend, it feels. That is why feeling is said. What does it feel? It feels pleasure. It feels pain. It feels neither pain nor pleasure. It feels, friends. It feels. That is why feeling is said. So here what he's saying is, consciousness is not some kind of self. Feeling is not some kind of self. Its the mechanism of consciousness allows the mind to be aware. The mechanism of Vedana, feeling, allows the experience to be felt, to be experienced, to be sensed. Perception is said, friend, with reference to what is perception said. It perceives. It perceives. That is why perception is said. What does it perceive? It perceives blue, it perceives yellow, it perceives red, and it perceives white. It perceives, friend. That is why perception is said. So the mechanism of perception that is there in our mind allows the mind to label what is being experienced. Just as you would see the color red, you would recognize it as the color red. Just as you would see this table, you would recognize it as a table. So the mechanism of consciousness is to understand. The mechanism of feeling is to experience. And the mechanism of perception is to label what is being cognized and what is being experienced. Feeling, perception, and consciousness, friend, are these states conjoined or disjoined? And is it possible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them? Feeling, perception, and consciousness, friend, these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it is impossible to separate each of these states from the others in order to describe the difference between them. For what one feels, that one perceives. And what one perceives, that one cognizes. That is why these states are conjoined, not disjoined. And it is impossible to separate each of these states from the other in order to describe the difference between them. What you experience, as soon as you see the color red, the mechanism of perception says that is red. And you understand and cognize it as an experience of seeing red. What one feels, what one experiences, that one immediately labels. And that one immediately understands to be there. This is a pleasant feeling. This is an unpleasant feeling. This is a neutral feeling. So feeling, perception, consciousness, these three run around each other. Using the example of one who puts the hand over the stove fire. You put your hand on the stove fire, you feel warmth. That's the experience. This is warmth. You perceive that it feels warm. In other words, you feel the heat, and you're able to label it as being heat. You say it is warm. That is the perception. The cognition of that, the understanding that this process is warm. That's the cognition, that's the consciousness. And then the fire gets hotter and it becomes painful. Then you perceive it, so you experience the pain, you perceive it as painful and understand that it is painful. These three states are interlaced within each other: feeling, perception, and consciousness. What one feels, that one perceives. What one perceives, that one cognizes. Friend, what can be known by purified mind consciousness released from the 5 faculties? What is beyond the experience of the 5 physical sense bases? Friend, by purified mind consciousness. Purified in what way? Free from hindrances. Meaning that mind is in a jhanic state of mind. Free from hindrances. Friend, by purified mind consciousness released from the 5 faculties. The base of infinite space can be known thus. Space is infinite. The base of infinite consciousness can be known thus. Consciousness is infinite. And the base of nothingness can be known thus. There is nothing. Meaning, when the mind is detached from the experience of the 5 physical sense bases, when you are meditating in the first 4 jhanas, you still feel some contact with the body. You still can experience things. But then eventually you go deep into your mind. You might still hear things, but there is the awareness of infinite space. There is the awareness of infinite consciousness. There is the awareness of nothingness. Because first of all, it's purified from the 5 hindrances. Purified of the 5 hindrances. So now it's in a jhanic state of mind. That mind consciousness is just aware of mind itself, the experiences of mind. And for that reason, it can experience infinite space, infinite consciousness, and nothingness. Friend, with what does one understand a state that can be known? Friend, with what does one understand a state that can be known? What is the tool? What is it that sees? What is it that understands? What is perceivable? What can be known? What can be understood? What is that? Friend, one understands a state that can be known with the eye of wisdom. Panya Chaku. The eye of wisdom. This eye of wisdom, or the eye of the Dhamma, or however you want to put it, is not some kind of pervasive consciousness that's the substratum of everything. That eye of wisdom that understands arises as and when the experience arises. So in other words, the observer, that which observes an experience, that which observes what can be known. The observer arises dependent upon the object of observation. The knower arises, the notion of the knower is superimposed upon the process of knowing. Friend, what is the purpose of wisdom? That's a fair question. Why are we doing all of this? The purpose of wisdom, friend, is direct knowledge. Its purpose is full understanding. Its purpose is abandoning. Wisdom is not gained for the sake of knowledge, for the sake of some kind of thing that you can show off. Wisdom is gained for direct knowledge. Direct knowledge of what? Nibbana. The cessation of suffering. Full understanding of what? Suffering. And abandoning of what? The causes and conditions that lead to suffering. When there is wisdom, there is immediate, automatic understanding of what is suffering, immediate, automatic letting go of the causes and conditions of suffering, and immediate and automatic experience and realization of Nibbana. Friend, how many conditions are there for the arising of right view? Right view is synonymous with wisdom, samadhi. Right view meaning the full understanding and grasp of the Four Noble Truths. Friend, there are 2 conditions for the arising of right view. The voice of another and wise attention. These are the two conditions for the arising of right view. The voice of another. At the time of the Buddha, that was the Buddha's voice, or a disciple of the Buddha. In today's world, it's YouTube. Somebody to point out the way, that this is right view. That way you know what is right view, at least on an intellectual level. And wise attention. Yoniso manasikara. Attention rooted in reality. Seeing things as they actually are. Recognizing when mind takes something to be permanent and letting go of that and seeing the impermanence. Recognizing when the mind sees something personal, letting go of that and understanding its impersonal nature. Friend, by how many factors is right view assisted when it has deliverance of mind for its fruit? Deliverance of mind for its fruit and benefit. When it has deliverance by wisdom for its fruit. Deliverance by wisdom for its fruit and benefit. Deliverance of mind. Ceto vimutti. And deliverance by wisdom. Panya vimutti. Let's understand what these two terms actually mean. Ceto vimutti is when somebody goes through the first 4 jhanas, then goes through the formless attainments, goes through cessation, and then experiences the destruction of the taints. Deliverance by mind. Panya vimutti is when somebody goes just through the first 4 jhanas, experiences cessation, and experiences the destruction of the taints. This is the difference. One experiences the first 4 jhanas in Panya vimutti, and then experiences the destruction of the taints. One goes through each of the 8 jhanas, then experiences the destruction of the taints. That is Ceto vimutti. So the question here is, how many factors is right view assisted when its benefit and its effect are deliverance of mind and deliverance of wisdom? Meaning the effect of right view is ultimately the destruction of the taints. So how many factors assist it? How many factors help it, facilitate that? Friend, right view is assisted by 5 factors. When it has deliverance of mind for its fruit, deliverance of mind for its fruit and benefit. When it has deliverance by wisdom for its fruit, and deliverance by wisdom for its fruit and benefit. Here, friend, right view is assisted by virtue, sila, keeping your precepts, learning, attending Dhamma talks, watching YouTube videos, reading the suttas, discussion, questions and answers, discussing the Dhamma, serenity, samatha, and insight, vipassana. So, virtue, sila, learning, discussion, serenity or samatha, and insight or vipassana. Right view is assisted by these 5 factors and has deliverance of mind for its fruit, deliverance of mind for its fruit and benefit, deliverance by wisdom for its fruit, and deliverance by wisdom for its fruit and benefit. Friend, how many kinds of being are there? How many kinds of existences are there? How many kinds of ways of becoming are there? How many types or categories under which habitual tendencies are present? There are these three kinds, friend: sense sphere being, fine material being, and immaterial being. Sense sphere being. In the context of the cosmology of the Dhamma, that starts from the hell realms all the way up to the sixth sensual heaven. This comprises of the sense sphere beings. And then from there, the first Brahmaloka all the way up to the fourth Brahmaloka, this constitutes the material being, fine material being, luminous beings. And then from infinite space all the way to neither perception or non-perception, that constitutes the immaterial beings. When I spoke about habitual tendencies the other day, this is what we were referring to. The mind has certain kinds of habitual tendencies that can be hellish and create psychological hell. That has deva-like tendencies that can create deva-like existence in the same life, deva-like psychological states, like being generous, compassionate, forgiving, patient, and so on. As you cultivate the jhanas, you start to cultivate Brahma-like tendencies, depending upon which jhana. Likewise, when you cultivate the formless attainments, you cultivate immaterial-like tendencies or psychological states. Friend, how is renewal of being in the future generated? The renewal of being, how are the renewal of these habitual tendencies? How do they come about? Friend, renewal of being in the future is generated through the delighting in this and that on the part of beings who are hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. This is a very important phrase to understand. Hindered by ignorance and fettered by craving. When the samskaras, the mental formations, are fettered by craving and influence, conditioned by ignorance, then that can give rise to the potential for craving, sensual craving, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. Acting upon that, there can be clinging and then becoming or being or habitual tendencies. Friend, how is renewal of being, the renewal of these habitual tendencies in the future, not generated? How do you stop the generation of these habitual tendencies? Friend, with the fading away of ignorance, with the arising of true knowledge, and with the cessation of craving, renewal of being in the future is not generated. The fading away of ignorance, how does that happen? Through awareness, observation, mindfulness, attention, being aware and attentive of what's going on, allows you to get a deeper understanding of the impermanent nature of things through seeing dependent origination, which then lets you see with right view. And so there is the fading away of ignorance, replaced by right view, replaced by wisdom. The arising of true knowledge is just that, the seeing into the links of dependent origination. And the cessation of craving, letting go of all craving. That is facilitated through having complete, pristine mindfulness of every moment, of every experience. Seeing that it is conditioned, therefore impermanent, therefore not to be taken as me, mine, or myself. By seeing it in this way, every feeling, every experience, no potential through the underlying tendencies can arise, and there cannot be the arising of craving, clinging, and being or becoming. Friend, what is the first jhana? Here, friend, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. This is called the first jhana. By now, everybody understands that, right? This is the first jhana. Mind is secluded from unwholesome states, no hindrances. Quite secluded from sensual pleasures, staying in the mind, not paying attention to what's going on, not getting your attention scattered through the sense bases. Enters upon the first jhana, which is accompanied by thinking and examining thought, starting the process of bringing up the object of meditation and resting your mind on the object of meditation. With rapture and pleasure born of seclusion, letting go of the hindrances provides relief. From that relief, there is joy and happiness and comfort in the body. Friend, how many factors does the first jhana have? Friend, the first jhana has 5 factors. Here, when a bhikkhu has entered upon the first jhana, there occur applied thought, sustained thought. So, bringing up the object, staying with the object. Rapture, the joy, the piti. Pleasure, comfort in the body. And unification of mind, ekagata. Letting the mind not be dispersed. The mind's attention is not dispersed, not refracted, but rather collected, orbiting around its object of meditation. That is how the first jhana has 5 factors. Friend, how many factors are abandoned in the first jhana, and how many factors are possessed? What do you think? How many factors are abandoned in the 5? I just told you. All right, what 5 factors are abandoned? Hindrances. Friend, in the first jhana, 5 factors are abandoned and 5 factors are possessed. Here, when a bhikkhu has entered upon the first jhana, sensual desire is abandoned, ill will is abandoned, sloth and torpor are abandoned, restlessness and remorse are abandoned, and doubt is abandoned. And there occur, again, the applied thought, the thinking, the bringing up of the object, the sustained thought, staying with the object of meditation, rapture, the bliss, the happiness, pleasure, comfort in the body, and unification of mind, ekagata. That is how in the first jhana, 5 factors are abandoned and 5 factors are possessed. Friend, these 5 faculties each have a separate field, a separate domain, and do not experience each other's field and domain. That is, the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty. Now, of these 5 faculties, each having a separate field, a separate domain, not experiencing each other's field and domain, what is their resort? What experiences their fields and domains? I do want to bring up something here. So what he's saying is that the eye only experiences the different forms. The ear only experiences the different sounds. The nose only experiences the different smells. The tongue experiences the different tastes. And the body experiences different touches. But there is something known as synesthesia, where the eye apparently can see smells or see sounds, or the ear can hear smells or hear tastes, or the nose can smell sights, or the tongue can taste sounds. Yeah, it can happen under certain kinds of influences, but there are some people who actually have inborn synesthesia. But regardless, they're still experiencing it through those sense faculties. The idea here is, or the question here is, what is their resort? What is it that experiences their fields and domains? Friends, these 5 faculties each have a separate field, a separate domain, and do not experience each other's field and domain. That is, the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty. Now, these 5 faculties, each having a separate field, a separate domain, not experiencing each other's field and domain, have mind as their resort. Mind experiences their fields and domains. Like we said earlier, mind is chief. Mind is the forerunner of all states. Ultimately, everything that you're experiencing, the mind is experiencing. Even the concept that you have a body is experienced through the mind. Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty, what do these faculties stand in dependence upon? What are they dependent upon? Friend, as to these 5 faculties, that is the eye faculty, the ear faculty, the nose faculty, the tongue faculty, and the body faculty, these 5 faculties stand in dependence on vitality. Vitality. We were talking about this yesterday, life faculty. So that is so here it's translated from the word ayu, A-Y-U, ayu, right? But that's another word for jivit indriya. And I did some contemplation on this. And in the Abhidhamma, it talks about 2 types of jivit indriya. There is the nama jivit indriya and there is the rupa jivit indriya. So, we were talking about this, that the eye faculty is dependent, or the eye and the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, they're all dependent upon this life faculty. Then the question arises, what does vitality stand in dependence on? Vitality stands in dependence on heat. Friend, what does heat stand in dependence on? Heat stands in dependence on vitality. Just now, friend, we understood the Venerable Sariputta to have said vitality stands in dependence on heat. And now we understand him to say heat stands in dependence on vitality. How should the meaning of these statements be regarded? You just told me that vitality stands in dependence on heat, and now you're telling me heat stands in dependence on heat, on vitality. How am I supposed to understand this? In that case, friend, I shall give you a simile. For some wise men here understand the meaning of a statement by means of a simile. Just as when an oil lamp is burning, its radiance is seen in dependence on its flame. and its flame is seen in dependence on its radiance. So too vitality stands in dependence on heat, and heat stands in dependence on vitality. Friend, are vital formations things that can be felt, or vital formations one thing and things that can be felt another? Vital formations. Ayu sankharas. Ayu sankhara. Vital formations, friends, are not things that can be felt. If vital formations were things that can be felt, then a bhikkhu who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling could not be seen to emerge from it, because vital formations are one thing and things that can be felt another. A bhikkhu who has entered upon the cessation of perception and feeling can be seen to emerge from it. In other words, what he's saying is, if vital formations were things to be felt, they would be part of mental formations, because through mental formations one can feel and perceive. But vital formations are separate. So you have bodily formations, verbal formations, and mental formations. In the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, mental formations cease. But if vital formations were something to be felt, then they would be consolidated with mental formations. They would be part of mental formations because they would be felt. But they are not felt, in the sense that all of the different bodily processes, like the cellular activity, like blood pressure, like all of the different vital signs that we have, all of those things are not necessarily always under our control. Although certain yogis can do that. But you're not always aware of them unless you put your attention to them. Like in the 8th jhana, you become aware of your heartbeat, or you might hear your blood flow, so they say, so some people experience. But vital formations are those that maintain the longevity of the body, ayu sankharas. They are separate to mental formations that allow us to experience through the 6 sense bases, perceive through the 6 sense bases. So when there is a cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, there is a cessation of bodily formations, there is a cessation of verbal formations, and there is a cessation of mental formations. But the ayu sankharas, those continue. Those ayu sankharas are basically the heat and vitality that we're talking about. That continues. And we'll see why. It says here, friend, when this body is bereft of how many states is it then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log, meaning when the body is dead, there is no more life process in the body. Friend, when this body is bereft of 3 states, vitality, heat, and consciousness, it is then discarded and forsaken, left lying senseless like a log. Friend, what is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a bhikkhu who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness? Friend, in the case of one who is dead, who has completed his time, his bodily formations have ceased. There's no more inhalation, exhalation going on, for example. His verbal formations have ceased. There's no more thinking and reflecting in the mind. And his mental formations have ceased and subsided. There's no more ability for the body to feel and perceive, the mind to feel and perceive, rather. His vitality is exhausted. There's no more life principle in the body. No more bodily processes that maintain homeostasis in the body, maintain the life in the body. Gone, exhausted. His heat has been dissipated. When you touch a dead body, it's cold. Doesn't maintain the same heat that we possess as living beings. And his faculties are fully broken up. The sense spaces no longer experience anything. No longer able to make contact because there's no consciousness there. In the case of a bhikkhu who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, his bodily formations have ceased and subsided. His verbal formations have ceased and subsided. His mental formations have ceased and subsided. But his vitality is not exhausted. The bodily processes that maintain the temperature of the body, maintain homeostasis in the body, continue. Life is still present in that body. His heat has not been dissipated. And his faculties become exceptionally clear. The sense bases, although are not active, they are exceptionally clear. Why? When you're experiencing whatever it is you're experiencing, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind, they are always bombarded by a traffic jam of sensory data, impeded by sensory data. But when there is cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness, the six sense bases are active, dependent upon the vitality and the heat, but there is no more sensory data being presented to them, or no more sensory data being received by them. There's no traffic going on there. That's why they are exceptionally clear. No traffic jams going on. This is the difference between one who is dead, who has completed his time, and a bhikkhu who has entered upon the cessation of perception, feeling, and consciousness. Now we are going to talk about the different liberations of the mind, including the emptiness liberation of the mind. This is known as deliverance of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of the neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind? What does that mean? Neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. Total equanimity. This is the fourth jhana. Friend, there are four conditions for the attainment of the neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. Here, with the abandoning of pleasure and pain, and with the previous disappearance of joy and grief, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the fourth jhana, which has neither pain nor pleasure and purity of mindfulness due to equanimity. These are the four conditions for the attainment of the neither painful nor pleasant deliverance of mind. The jhanas are also known as liberations because they are temporary liberations. While you are in a jhanic state, your mind is liberated from craving, liberated from any kind of aversion, liberated from restlessness, liberated from sloth and torpor, liberated from doubt. So anytime craving does arise, you are not in jhana. Anytime any hindrance arises, you are not in jhana. So how do you come back to jhana? 6 R's. Friend, how many conditions are there for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind? We talked about this, jhana 8.5. The signless collectedness of mind. How many conditions are there for that attainment? Friend, there are 2 conditions for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind. Listen to this. Non-attention to all signs and attention to the signless element. What is the signless element? So when you are in the signless collectedness of mind, what happens? Your mind the edges of your mind start to dissolve. Your awareness is not landing on anything. Non-attention to all objects. But there is attention. Attention to what? Just the awareness of itself. You can't possess it. There's no object there. It's just awareness. The awareness that's looking but not looking at anything. Resting in that awareness. The awareness of awareness. These are the two conditions for the attainment of the signless deliverance of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind? Friend, there are 3 conditions for the persistence of the signless deliverance of mind. Non-attention to all signs, attention to the signless element, and the prior determination of its duration. So this is an attainment. When we say it's an attainment, which means that the mind is able to go at it at will. Go at any jhana at will. And be able to determine how long to be in that state. So people have kind of stumbled into, for this retreat, that signless collectedness of mind. As you start to perfect your understanding and awareness and experience of it, and as you start to develop your ability to do determinations, then you can attain to it, and that's an attainment. That's another bragging right that you can put up there and say, I can attain the signless collectedness of mind. Friend, how many conditions are there for emergence from the signless deliverance of mind? Friend, there are 2 conditions for the emergence from the signless deliverance of mind. What do you think? You need the attention to an object, attention to all signs. So now you take an object. And non-attention to the signless element. So you don't become aware of the awareness, you become aware of the object of its attention. These are the 2 conditions for emergence from the signless deliverance of mind. Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind. The deliverance of mind through nothingness. The deliverance of mind through emptiness. The signless deliverance of mind. Are these states different in meaning and different in name? Or are they one in meaning and different only in name? In other words, are these states that I've just told you, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, the deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through emptiness, and the signless deliverance of mind, are they synonymous with each other, or are they different states that are being described? Friend, the immeasurable deliverance of mind, the deliverance of mind through nothingness, the deliverance of mind through emptiness, and the signless deliverance of mind. Listen to this. There is a way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name, and there is a way in which they are one in meaning and different only in name. You can never get a straight answer out of an arahat. What, friend, is the way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name? Here, so now how are these states different in terms of they have different names, but they're also different in terms of their qualities. They are different states. How are they different? Here, One abides pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, as above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself. He abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. Does this sound familiar? He abides pervading the world imbued with compassion, with altruistic joy, with equanimity. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so below, above, below, around, and everywhere, and to all as to himself. He abides pervading the all-encompassing world with a mind imbued with these qualities, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility, and without ill will. This is called the immeasurable deliverance of mind. So when you radiate in the 6 directions, for those who are doing the 6 directions, if you're doing it in a way that you're experiencing their radiating, you're experiencing the world, everything around you, including yourself, being imbued with that loving kindness, with compassion. This is that immeasurable deliverance of mind. That's the quality of the mind. And what, friend, is the deliverance of mind through nothingness? Here, with the complete surmounting of the base of infinite consciousness, aware that there is nothing, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the base of nothingness. This is called the deliverance of mind through nothingness. So this is the 7th jhana, or the formless state, or the ayatana of nothingness. After the rising and passing away of consciousnesses, then you start to see the gaps, and the gaps start to widen. Then your awareness and perception become more cognizing of the actual gap, which then widens and then becomes nothing. And there is no thingness. This is the deliverance of mind through nothingness. And what, friend, is the deliverance of mind through emptiness? Here, a bhikkhu gone to the forest or the root of a tree or to an empty hut reflects thus: this is empty of a self or of what belongs to a self. This is what we talked about yesterday. This is called the deliverance of mind through emptiness. One takes each of the 5 aggregates, each of the 6 sense bases, and just observes them, and then realizes this is empty of any kind of self, empty of anything belonging to what could be considered a self. Another way of looking at this, you could do this as an exercise off retreat. Although I don't know if some of you will do it on retreat or not, because some of you don't listen. But you take a thought, and then you look at how that thought arose. And then look at how the content of that arose. And then you look at how that source of that thought arose. And eventually you see that it is empty of any kind of self. The mind comes to this state which is similar to the signless collectedness of mind, just completely quiet, observing things as they actually are. And what, friend, is the signless deliverance of mind? We already said this. Here, with non-attention to all signs, a bhikkhu enters upon and abides in the signless collectedness of mind. This is called the signless deliverance of mind. This is the way in which these states are different in meaning and different in name. Meaning these are different states. And what, friend, is the way in which these states are one in meaning and different only in name? How are they synonymous? How do they point to that one singular state? Lust is a maker of measurement. Hate is a maker of measurement. Delusion is a maker of measurement. When they say maker of measurement, what does that mean? The I-making, the ahamkara, the conceit. Conceit arises when I don't like something, when I like something, or I think I am that. These three roots, greed, hatred, and delusion, create that sense of I. In one whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all kinds of immeasurable deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best. Now, that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, empty of hate, empty of delusion. So in other words, when we talk about the immeasurable deliverance of mind, what we're saying is that mind, that is the mind of a fully awakened person that has no more greed, hatred, or delusion, doesn't measure things, doesn't project the idea of this is me, mine, or myself, doesn't compare in relation to a self-concept. In that way, it is immeasurable. And because it is empty of craving, empty of hatred, empty of delusion, it is empty. It experiences emptiness in that sense. Lust is a something. Hate is a something. Delusion is a something. That is to say, greed, hatred, and delusion are something in the mind. They are qualities of the mind. Or they can be qualities of the mind. In one whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they no longer are subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of deliverance of mind through nothingness, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best, arahatship. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, void of delusion. Lust is a maker of signs. Hate is a maker of signs. Delusion is a maker of signs. In order for greed to arise, right, when there is greed, there is also an object of that greed. When there is lust, when there is hatred, there is an object of that hatred. It doesn't have to be an external object. It can be even the mind itself. I hate myself. I hate the way I am. Those kinds of thoughts can arise too. Or delusion, the ignorance of me, mine, myself, taking things personally. There can be an object of that. A sign, nimitta, which is an object. These three are makers of sign. These three are makers of objects. In one whose taints are destroyed, these are abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, done away with so that they are no longer subject to future arising. Of all the kinds of signless deliverance of mind, the unshakable deliverance of mind is pronounced the best, arahatship. Because the arahat no longer has any objects of greed, any objects of hatred, any objects of delusion. Now that unshakable deliverance of mind is void of lust, void of hate, void of delusion. This is the way in which these states are one in meaning and different only in name. That is what the Venerable Sariputta said. The Venerable Mahakotita was satisfied and delighted in the Venerable Sariputta's words.